Hi guys, welcome back. We're on lesson 30 today. We're going to be talking about common denominators, fractions, adding and subtracting fractions with different denominators, all that good stuff. So what we're going to do is grab your notebook. You need to be writing down these examples as we go along. All right, example number 1. Here's how it goes. Oh, that was supposed to be a 1. Okay, so we have, it's asking us to rename, if you're following along at home, I'm on page 171. Ask us to rename 2/3 and 1/4 so they have a common denominator. This is where we need that least common multiple. And guys, I'm looking around for my multiplication chart. Here we go. This is a little bit easier because what we have, so our denominators, remember denominator is downstairs, 3 and 4. So if I take this and I reach, that's a great look. All right, so here's my 3's. Here are my 4's, right? So I think having a multiplication chart, this makes it a little bit easier. What we're looking for is a common denominator. Guys, I see that they have 24 in common, but I want the least common denominator. Otherwise, you're gonna be reducing fractions, and I don't wanna make you do that. So, I mean, you'll still have to reduce fractions, but not as much. So the least common denominator in this case is gonna be 12, right? So what do I need to multiply 3 by to get 12? I need to multiply that by 4. But if I do it on the bottom, I have to do it on the top because 4 over 4 is 1, and I'm allowed to multiply anything by 1. Same here, 3, 3. So if I do this, I get 8 over 12 and 3 over 12. 3 over 12. So that's how you find a common denominator, okay? Oftentimes you can just multiply these two things together on the bottom. Like for example, if I had like 1 and 5 plus 1 and 3, right? 5 times 3 is 15, and that's our least common denominator, right? So I'm going to multiply this by 3, this by 5, right? That makes sense? End up with 3 over 15 plus 5 over 15. Where that does not work, though, is something like 6 and 8. This is a common one. If I have, for example, 1 over 6 plus 1 over 8. If I multiply those two together, I get 48. 6 times 8 is 48, right? However, that is not the least common denominator. Let's go back to our handy little chart we have here. Do you need something? You're good? Yep. Okay. So the guys that I have here are 6 and 8. 6 and 8. All right, like I said, you could multiply them together. You would get 48, which is here and here. But if you take a look, we actually have something more closely in common, 24. So 24. So in order for us to do this guy, I would multiply this by 4 over 4, right, on the top and the bottom, and this guy by 3 and 3. That would give me my least common denominator. So the point of all of this is to make sure you're picking the least common one, or, I mean, it's not wrong if you don't. You just end up having to do, reduce your fractions more. So, as always though, when we're dealing with fractions, you have to reduce them anyway. If you don't reduce your fraction, I need a stamp that says reduce because y'all, I wrote it like 70 times on your tests. Reduce your fraction, reduce your fraction, reduce. So, reduce your fraction is the point of that. All right, let's see about some of these other ones. Example number 2. And guys, keep in mind, you don't need a common denominator when you're multiplying fractions because you just multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. This is only for adding and subtracting. All right, write these two fractions with common denominators so that you can compare them. All right, a couple different ways to compare, but let's take a look again at our handy chart. We've got 6 and 9. So 6 and 9, I can already see it right here, 18. 18. All right, so looking at this, I'm going to multiply this by 3 and this by 3. I'm going to multiply this by 2 and this by 2. So what I have now is 15 over 18 compared to 14 over 18. That means this guy is going to be larger because you want 15 slices of pizza, right? If it's sliced into 18, you want 15, not 14. Keeping that in mind, there is another way to do this. This is the original problem, and we're comparing these guys. Make like a rocket ship, go this way to this way, I would get 42. Go this way to this way, I would have 45. This number is larger, therefore this guy is larger as well. So that's another way to compare fractions if you didn't want to put them into common denominators. But do whatever the book tells you to do, please and thank you. All right, so let me see about example number 3. Now we get to add. Example number 3. So adding these guys, we have 3/4 and 3/8. 3/4 plus 3/8. Again, you could multiply these together to get your common denominator, but you don't want to. You want your least common one, and your least common one is 8. All I have to do is multiply this guy by 2 over 2, And I end up with 6 over 8 plus 3 over 8, which gives me my common denominator. So now I have 9 over 8. You can leave it as an improper fraction if you'd like, although I think in the book it turns it into a mixed number. How many times does 8 go into 9 without going over? 1 time with a remainder of 1. Remainder of 1. Good. All right, guys, let's see about this next one. Example number 4. We have 5/6 minus 3/4. 6 and 4. See, this is a common one. 6 times 4 is 24, right? But that's not our least common denominator. If we think about 4, if we think about all of our multiples, it's not our least common multiple is what I meant to say. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, right? And then 6, 12, bam, there you go, 6 and 12. So, or I'm sorry, 4 and 6 have 12 in common is what I meant to say. So this guy I'm gonna multiply by 2, and this one I'm gonna multiply by 2. And guys, the way that I am showing my work right now is how you need to be showing it on your homework and your tests. I won't accept it if I don't see it, okay? So this is 10 over 12 minus 9 over 12, which equals 1 over 12, 1 over 12, 1/12. All right, so then, example number 5, we've got some mixed numbers in here. Example number 5. All right, we have 8 and 2/3 minus 5 and 1/6. All right, guys, for multiplying mixed numbers, I actually prefer to do this vertically, and I'll show you why. 8 and 2/3 minus 5 and 1/6. Our common denominator here is 6, right? So I don't have to do anything here, but I do have to multiply this by 2 and 2. So I'm going to rewrite my problem now. I have 8 and 4 over 6 minus 5 and 1 over 6. Okay? So let's deal with just the fraction bit first. This is 6. 4 minus 1 would give me 3. 8 minus 5 would give me 3. But remember, you have to reduce your fractions, right? So 3 over 6 can be reduced down. If I divide the top and bottom by 3, I end up with 3 and 1/2. 3 and 1/2. Excellent. So, let's see what else. So that's how you can do that without turning it into a mixed number. I think that's a lot easier. Example 6, let's do this. Example 6, we have 1/2 plus 2/3 plus 3/4. Hold on, my dog's getting into something. I gotta pause this. All right, guys, so, y'all, I set my book down. I don't know where. Right here. Close up of my mouth there. All right, so guys, we need to find a common denominator between 2, 3, and 4. Again, this is where that handy chart comes in, right? I could multiply all these things together. 2 times 3 is 6, times 4 is 24. That is a multiple, but then you will have to reduce. So instead, we're gonna do 2, 3, and 4. 2, 3, and 4. Okay. All right, guys, so looking at those, we have 2, 4, 6. I have 6 in common here. No, that's not gonna work. I have 8 in common here. That's not gonna work. But I have 12 in common. So you see that's smaller than 24. So if you had done 24, you would have had to find the greatest common factor, or I mean, you would have had to reduce, right? So 12, I'm gonna multiply this by 6 and this by 6, right? When you're writing these problems down, it's really helpful to leave enough room to make sure. This times 4, this times 4, this times 3, this times 3. So what I end up with now is 6 over 12 plus 8 over 12 plus 9 over 12. That's my dog squeaking. Oh, great. All right, guys, the denominator stays the same, 12. 9 and 9 is 18, minus 1 is 17, plus 6 would be 23. 12, so the other way to turn this into a mixed number is to take this guy that's on top of the table and put it under the table here. 12 goes into 23 one time, almost 2. And if I do this, I would have a remainder of 11. So it's 11 over 12, because we don't write our remainder as R, right? So this guy equals 1 and 11 over 12. 1 and 11 over 12. All right, that was 6. Let's see about example 7, prime factorization to help you add these fractions. So This is example 7. This is where we're going to be using that prime factorization to find your least common multiple. You have 5 over 32 plus 7 over 24. So let's do some side work here. 32, the prime factorization of that would be 16 and 2. This is 8 and 2. So there's 2 there. This is 4 and 2, and this is 2 and 2. So 32 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3, 4, 5, right? Then we have 24. That is 6 times 4. This is 2 times 3, and this is 2 and 2. So 24 is 1, 2, 3. I should probably circle those so you can see that. So 3, 2, so 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. All right, so again, finding that prime factorization, we have to have the most, so we have 5 2's here and we have 3 2's here. So the most we have is 5, so we have to have 5. 2, 3, 4, that's 4, 5. Now our 3's, we have 1 3 here and no here, so the most we have is a 3, okay? So we have 32 times 3. That gives me 96. 96. So 96, so I'm going to erase all this side work here. 96 is going to be our common denominator here. So this is going to be 96 plus something 96. So 96 divided by 32 would give me 3, right? So I got to multiply this by 3, this by 3. And then 96 divided by 24 will give me 4. So this times 4, this times 4. So upstairs I have 15, and then downstairs here I have 28. So 28 plus 15, now I'm all paranoid, I'm going to make a mistake of like simple math, is 43. So 43 over 96. Now again, when we go to reduce fractions, you want to ask yourself 2, 3, 5, sometimes 7. This is not divisible by 2. This is, but that's not. This is divisible by 3 because if you add 9 and 6, you would get 15, right? And 15 is divisible by 3. However, this adds up to 7, so that's not either. Neither of them are divisible by 5 or 7, so we're in business. This is your answer. Okay. All right, guys, so actually the practice problems start on page 174, A through G. Go ahead and pause the video, get started on those, and then come on back to see if you did them right. All right, so A. Make these have common denominators so that you can compare them. And 10. The least common denominator here would be 10, so I'm going to multiply this by 2 and this by 2. So I end up with 6 over 10 and 7 over 10. This one's larger, so we're going to open the alligator to that side. I'm going to pause this for a second. Okay, so for B, we've got 5/12 and 7/15. 7/15. So this is where it's helpful to have this multiplication chart, right? 12 and 15. Well, taking a look at these 15s, you can see that it has to end in a 5 or a 0, right? So we go up to 12. 60 ends in a 0, so is it 60? And it looks like it is to me. All right, so that means we're going to multiply this guy by 4 and this by 4. And this by 5 and this by 5. So that ends up with 25 over 60, comparing that to 28 over 60. So this guy would be larger. Excellent. That was B. Let's C. We're going to add some fractions here. C. We have 3/4 plus 5/6 plus 3/8. All right, 4, 6, and 8. Let's look at 4 and 6 first. So we got 4 here, 4 and 6, and then 8. All right, so 8, 16. Oh, I see 16 and 16 here. 24, 24, 24. It looks like 24 is our winner. 24. So we're going to have 24 plus 24 plus 24. This one we're going to have to multiply by 6 by 6. This is by 4 by 4. This is by 3 by 3, and so I end up with 18 plus 20 plus 9. So our denominator is going to remain 24, and then we have 18, so that's 38 plus 9, that's 47. All right, so how many times does 24 go into 47? Looks like 1 time. with a remainder of 23. So 23 over 24. So this is going to equal 1 and 23 over 24. Let me make sure that this focuses. There we go. Okay. Either way, if improper fraction or mixed number, although you've got to really learn how to do those mixed numbers. So, all right, let's do D. 7 and 5/6 minus, it's written long ways, but I'm gonna write it like this. Let's deal with just that fraction bit. Our common denominator is 6, so I'm gonna multiply this by 3, and I'm going to rewrite the equation. And guys, that's what you should be doing. I need to see your work on this. So 3 over 6, good. For that fraction bit, I get 5 minus 3 is 2 over 6, and then 7 minus 2 is 5. So we can reduce this down by dividing the top and the bottom. Those are both even numbers, so we're going to divide by 2, divide by 2. This ends up to be 5 1/3. 5 1/3. Your work needs to look like this. If I don't see this, I'm assuming you're just using a calculator, or I don't know. That's why you got to show your work. Okay. 4 3/4 plus 5 5/8. Let's deal with just that fraction bit, and our common denominator is 8, so I'm going to multiply this by 2 and this by 2. I end up with 4 6/8 plus 5 5/8. All right, so for my whole numbers, I have a 9. Over here, I have 8, 5, and 6. That gives me 11. Notice I have an improper fraction here. I got to turn that bit into a regular mixed number. So 8 goes into 11 one time with a remainder of 3, right? So 8, so this would be 9 plus that, right? So our answer is going to be 10 3/8. 10 3/8. Good. That was E. Let's look at F. More fractions. I love fractions. If you were in my 6th grade class last year, you know I love fractions. 5/9. Okay, so again, we could multiply 9 times 6, and that would give us 54. But that's not our least common multiple, right? Taking a look at 9 and 6. Here's our 6. Well, I see 18. I know 9 goes into 18. So let's do 18. This times 2, this times 2, this times 3, this times 3. I'm going to rewrite this equation now. 4 3/18 minus 2 10/18. All right, guys, if you're doing it my style, this is going to be a fun one because we have to borrow. Take a look. If we deal with just this fraction bit here, 3 minus 10 gives me a negative number. So what we need to do is we need to borrow from our whole. We're going to borrow from here and make this a 3. Whatever this number is on the bottom, you add to the top. Okay? So now I've got to rewrite this for a 3rd time. 3 and then 18 plus 3 is 21 over 18 minus 2 and 10 over 18. So if I do that, I get my 18 as this, and 21 minus 10 will give me 11. So it's 1 11/18. 1 11/18. All right, so G, we will do a couple more of those in class so that if you have questions, you know what you're at. Okay, so G says use prime factorization to do this one. Oops, it'll help if I wrote the problem right. 245. Okay, so let's do some side work here. 25 is 5 times 5, right? 45 is 5 times 9, which is 3 times 3. So the most that I have I don't have any 2s, but for 3s, I have 2 3s here, right? So I'm going to have the least common multiple is going to be 2 3s, okay? Then the most I have for 5s, I've got 1 here, but I have 2 here, so I have to have 2 up here. All right, so when we do that on the calculator, we get 5 times 5, which is 25 times 9, which gives me 225. So my least common multiple is 225. So I'm going to have 225 minus 225. Okay, so that means I'm going to multiply this by 9, okay? And then 225 divided by 45, multiply this by 5 and this by 5, okay? Looking at this, I'm going to see 27 minus 10. This ends with 17 over 225. 17 over 225. All right, guys, if you have any questions, let me know. Fractions are super important, especially for next year for algebra. So I look forward to working with you on them. Let me know if you have any problems. Thanks, guys.